Gallery. We work together with a firm called TMR Associates, and we formed a company in order to market this product in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. And now they've asked us to take to New York, and Lord knows we're going to spread ourselves around.
And our chubby little bodies can only be spread so far.
Yeah, then we have to find some help. So, at any rate, we're here to talk about TeelBQ and PP-RCT pipe. TeelBQ is a company that's jointly owned by Teel Plastics Incorporated in Baraboo, Wisconsin, and they've joint ventured with TeelBQ out of Germany on this material. TeelBQ in Germany manufactures the PP-RCT pipe. Currently, the material comes in from Germany. It's stocked in Baraboo, Wisconsin, and gradually we're trying to put on stocking distributors to try and service local markets and that sort of thing. Eventually, the material will all be made in Baraboo, at least the pipe will. Fittings will continue to be molded in Germany, I'm sure, because that's a really expensive proposition to cut tooling, to mold fittings and so forth. It'd be much cheaper to just fly them in as a finished product, which is what will occur. PP-RCT is polypropylene random copolymer temperature. The RCT stands for random copolymer temperature, and basically what it is a higher temperature, higher tensile strength, or higher working pressure material than standard polypropylene. Either in some of the choices.
Excuse me, Wayne. May I ask, gentlemen, how many of you may be familiar with, do you currently or have you sold any polypropylene piping at all?
No. Not on purpose. Nope.
Okay, well, I mean, it's just good to know what the...
What about acid waste drain systems? Seal?
Well,
Enfield.
you sold Orion.
Orion,
No,
yeah.
that's
Orion.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let me say that just for a blanket question, I mean, not a blanket statement, all thermoplastics have their place in the industrial world. Most of the, polypropylene applications we've had up until recent times have been, not most, but many of them have been limited. The good things about polypropylene is its chemical resistance to many things in the industrial world, and it's attractive for that. But the higher the temperature, the lower the pressure. It's like a brake in a gas pedal. You can't have both at its max. You want one on the extreme end, you got to sacrifice one or the other. This product that's been developed, controls or helps keep us in the industrial market, and it's a direct competition to carbon steel, stainless steel. It has a lot of advantages, and polypro traditionally has been very limited. Support spacing on the high temperatures, it sags, so you got to support it, very close. Whereas this product, you can support it the same as, copper. And it remains rigid, it doesn't sag. I'll give you all the reasons why.
You want to come up here? I think the nice thing about polypropylene and what is so unique about it is that it's almost insoluble in applications below 140 degrees F. So, it has fantastic resistance to nasty, aggressive chemicals and solutions and so forth. That's why it has taken over the acid waste market for hospitals, universities, industrial plants and that sort of thing, where they used to use the high silicon cast iron or glass fittings and so forth, so that they could handle these nasty waste streams and so forth. Polypropylene has just wiped all of that out. And if you know through Seal or Enfield or Orion, I know some people were talking about that, if you're familiar with Orion. Those are products that are used in that application. This system is designed for pressure, and it's designed to replace copper and steel. And it goes in for domestic cold water, domestic hot water for heating, chilled water, or any kind of a chemical, an aggressive media and so forth. And that's where it fits. The material sells for a considerably lower price than copper and a higher price than steel. But the ease of installation compared to steel makes it a real bargain. I mean, you can just about put in 6 times as much of this in the same time that you would put in, if you talked about units, 1 unit of steel and 6 units of the PP-RCT is about the way it goes. So the attraction is economics. Economics and a material that meets all of the performance requirements for the applications. It doesn't do everything, but it does a lot. See if I can get out of the way here. Yeah, take that. 1954, a German by the name of Natta, actually created polypropylene chemically and so forth, and that was the basis of where it started, and it just grew from there and improved over time. The first material that was made was PPH, which is a homopolymer material. By that, it has no alloys. Plastics can be alloyed the same as metals. You can add, like probably one of the most common would be polypropylene and polyethylene. And what the polyethylene does is it improves the impact strength of the polypropylene. Reduces the temperature range, but everything's a trade-off. PPH, there's still a lot of that made. It's best if that is a stress relief material, as a piping material, which is hard to find. Block copolymer, this is the material that Asahi America sells. You familiar with them? Their material is all block copolymer, and the copolymer part of it is where in the molecular chain they insert an ethylene propylene diene monomer in to modify the physical properties of the material. And then random copolymer, there's ethylene propylene introduced randomly throughout the chain, which gives the material very, very good toughness, very good abrasion resistance, slightly higher temperature range, and chemical resistance, which is almost as good as PP-RCT, but it's not quite as good. Oh, yes. Cool. Okay. I don't know whether you can see these numbers on here at all, but probably the most important here is where you can get a critical requirement stress, 158 degrees after 50 years service, and you can't do it with homopolymer, you can't do it with block copolymer, polypropylene, random, you can do it in with a stress of 3.15 megapascals, and PP-RCT is up about 40% higher than that.
So looking to our future.
This is just an illustration of the difference in molecular structure between PPR and the crystallinity versus the PP-RCT, which is very uniform in its structure compared to the PPR. Next. Okay. Here you can see some of the things that are being done with PP-RCT. This could be everything from a process line to an exhaust duct in some cases. Here we're looking at a maximum required stress classification, 20C or 68 degrees F for 50 years. And that doesn't really play an important role for the material that is also being used in hot water applications. And a random copolymer would have a rating of 10 or 145 psi, and PP-RCT would be 11.2 or about 12 or 15% higher. These are just regression curves. We got hoop stress rating going up in megapascals, temperature 20, 70, 95, and 110 C. The red lines are PPR material. The black lines are PP-RCT. And you can see that when you get out, time to failure 10,000 hours actually at 110 degrees C, the PPR material develops a knee. And not long after that, at 95 C it does. You can't use the material beyond the point where it develops a knee. You know, you'll never have to explain this to anybody. But
That's the point of today.
yeah.
It's gonna be a test after this.
It's in writing, you're only allowed to get one wrong out of 100.
Just another illustration of the
I might as well leave
differences
now.
between PPR and PP-RCT. And we keep pounding on PPR. I mean, you know, we're saying nasty things about, oh yeah, we're only saying nasty things. We're just comparing
Saying
it.
better things about
We're
RCT.
comparing it in a negative fashion to PP-RCT. The major supplier for this material is an outfit called Aquatherm.
And that's why we keep saying it. RCT is definitely a step ahead.
Aquatherm does not really have a PP-RCT. They claim to, but they call it PPR, then, what is it, RT. And they've changed that, but they add an additive at the extruder, which is supposed to help the material match PP-RCT in terms of performance. It doesn't quite, but that's what they do. Most of what they sell is PPR.
And they've done a fantastic marketing job for the last 10 or so years. They are a known factor in this world.
When they introduced that product, Jack and I have been with them for a long time. When they introduced that product, and I read their literature and the claims, and geez, these guys, you know, this is like, I've never seen a product romanced so much. I mean,
Best thing since
yeah,
Bubblegum.
they made claims and it was just beautifully done. And not too many years after that, they're doing $50 million a year worth of business, you know, and they're still going. We have a better product. We have a product with a larger size range. They go through 12-inch in molded fittings. We go through 24-inch in molded fittings.
That's a major advantage.
Bet.
Once you start fabricating the larger diameter fittings, there's an enormous amount of labor involved, and therefore the costs go up dramatically.
Yeah, and a lot of engineers, given their druthers, they'll say they want a molded fitting
Positively.
rather than fabricated fitting in a heartbeat. So that's a real plus. And in reality, in Germany, BQ actually goes through 32-inch.
Really.
Yeah. But I don't think that we're going to be seeing that coming in.
For the record, folks, all of the manufacturers thus far, there is no, to my knowledge, American manufacturer. They're all coming from various places in Europe, and Germany seems to be the home port and where it all started. But who's the Italian? Nyron? You've heard of Nupi or
Yeah.
Nyron? That's Italian.
Mhm.
Most of them are German, but there are a few Yugoslavia, but they're all from the European continent.
Yeah, there's Nyron or Nupi, which is Italian. There's Aquatechnic,
Yep.
which is also Italian. It's marketed out of Canada. There's Pestan, which is Yugoslavian. Again, the size range, nobody matches the size range that you have from Teel.
I think there's another thing, I don't remember bringing this up before, the other group, but Borealis Resin is a German manufacturer. And, I was gonna say we had them in here, we didn't, but we did several lunch and learns with engineering firms with these people, and Borealis worldwide is well known, well respected for having Class A, AAA plus quality product. And we'll get into the core of this pipe in a few minutes, but they're the ones that have developed the resin.
Yes, this is a Borealis.
In one of the
resin.
charts that we just saw, where you saw the molecular structure, where all of the molecules essentially are evenly dispersed with their resin, and they took a lot of, it's a special formulation, but it's easy. I mean, it's even throughout the molecular structure. Whereas when Aquatherm is introducing the resin as an after part of their extruding process, you'll see on the chart that there's a lot of dark black spots, which is saying that it's not even, it's clustered together, and it's not giving you the full protection that you are really looking for.
Yeah, it's not thoroughly and evenly dispersed.
Who owns the largest market share?
Aquatherm.
Aquatherm does.
Aquatherm's been at it for 10 or 12 years, and
Yeah.
they just, they went at it big time, and they romanced it beautifully. I mean, they really did a sales and marketing job that is commendable. But they aren't the only game in town, and they aren't the best game in town. And that's the important part here. So you have a product that you can compete with in the marketplace with them readily. That is a slightly better product or a considerably better product depending on the application. So you won't be taking a back seat to them at all. Except that they're going to be the guys that you might be trying to displace. And we want to help you do that. So.
Now, Nyron is just PPR too.
Yes, and they also use Borealis resin. I mean, they are,
Nyron is PP-RCT.
Nyron is PPRC also.
Yeah.
Okay.
and they are much more of an equal to us than Aquatherm.
Well, the difference, the big difference is, I guess, the marketing philosophy. The guy who runs sales and marketing for Nyron is an expatriate Asahi America guy. And the biggest stumbling block that they had to trying to sell Polypro was this butt fusion. Contractors always complain, I don't want to buy a machine, I don't want a machine, etc., etc. So Chris, the guy's name is Chris Ziu, Chris has emphasized, and is emphasizing, the sale of nylon with electrofusion fittings.
You guys familiar with
It
electrofusion?
runs the cost way up. Easier to install, for sure. But it runs the
How about
fittings.
pressure-wise?
Huh?
How about pressure-wise?
Well, they're the same pressure rating. Yeah.
Explain to them what type of fitting that is, so everybody knows.
Well, I just showed, another product line that we represent, but this is acid drain. You folks have sold Orion, but let me just get the page here. Electrofusion, on the idea of the fitting, you can see it if you look close at these fittings. There's a clear coat polypro holding the coils into the wall of the fitting, and once you put that onto an end of the pipe, the machine liquefies that clear polypro onto the wall of the pipe, and that's your electrofusion joint. But this is only a drainage system, but you have it, that's why I just asked them for the pressure. I personally have only sold electrofusion for drainage, but
Which is not pressure rated.
that's,
But
you test that with 10 feet ahead, and that's acceptable for all laboratory drainage.
in order to do the nylon electrofusion fittings, you have to peel the ends of the pipe. They have a tool that requires that you basically have to peel down the socket depth on the end of the pipe all the way around. It isn't just a real quick 1-2 and it's done. You've got to scrape it and get it down to the correct dimension so that it goes into the fitting without any gaps. And then you attach your two leads to it and hit the switch on the transformer to melt, to heat up the coil and to melt the mating surfaces. So
Look inside the fitting, you can see, you actually see the coils. And it's the same concept, even though that's only a drainage.
So at any rate, the electrofusion fittings are very expensive. I think they take away from the cost savings that's offered by this material versus steel or copper, big time. But
Sounds like it takes a long time to do it.
pardon?
Sounds like it takes a long time to do a fitting.
It does, it does.
And it's an expensive way of doing it. I mean, they offer the same, socket or butt fusion as we do, but again, Chris View is, the electrofusion is his way of eliminating or at least downplaying the
Butt fusion tool.
butt fusion tools. But, as we've often said, and I feel like I'm repeating myself all the time, but, if you get a large diameter application and significant, and you got up against stainless or carbon steel where you got a welder making $115 an hour and a fireman, and they're making 27, 28 inches of weld on a standard shift, we can do 5, depending on the diameter, 5, 6 times that output with a 2-man crew that doesn't demand a welder's compensation.
Yeah, and there's no fire watch.
No fireworks.
Or anything else.
But 2 men on a any size machine, once they're trained properly, they can just, you take 1 or 2 days maybe to train them, and then you go like gangbusters. And, it's like anything, you do it often enough, you get very proficient at it. And it is not rocket science. You don't have to go to a technical school 3 nights a week to do it.
Come on. Oh, it's back.
No, you ain't sitting down,
Huh?
man. What do you want?
Well, let's go back. I'm gonna scroll up.
On finish up.
Huh?
This one?
No, that goes, well,
Here, just keep pushing all of them.
Let's get you
that's good. Yeah, these are, that's good. The next one, another illustration of the comparative illustration PPR versus PP-RCT. Here, this is talking about an operating pressure of 8 bar or 116 psi and at 140 degrees F. In PPR, you'd have to use an SDR 7.4, and PP-RCT, you do an SDR 9. Everybody know what an SDR is?
Explain that to him real quick.
Okay.
Let's go over again. Yeah.
Standard Dimension Ratio, SDR. This number, 7.4, represents the ratio between the OD and the wall thickness. So, the lower the number, the thicker the wall. In other words, you got a 3-inch pipe that's an SDR 11. That's where the OD is 11 times the wall thickness. Whatever this number is, the lower it goes, the thicker the wall. So for that application, PPR would require an SDR 7.4, PP-RCT would require an SDR 9. This being a thinner wall, is going to be less money. You know, basically that's what it boils down to. Same way, hot water supply, 158 degrees, PPR SDR 6, PP-RCT, SDR 9. Higher SDR, thinner wall, less money. And that's the way it works throughout.
Another way of remembering SDR, guys, it does, like Wayne just said, standard dimensional ratio, and it means reference to the, you know, the OD and the wall thickness, but the wall thickness is as thick as necessary. Well, first of all, SDR means one particular pressure rating. So as the size goes up, the wall thickness is as thick as necessary to, let's say it's 125 psi. The wall thickness is exactly what it should be per size to maintain that 125 psi. Right?
Yeah, to put it another way, Schedule 40, Schedule 80 pipe, the wall thickness changes on a side-by-side basis, and the pressure rating changes. So if you're looking at Schedule 40 pipe, the pressure rating in every diameter will be different. With SDR pipe, standard dimension ratio, if it's an SDR 9, then the pressure rating for every diameter. If even it's a half mile in diameter, the pressure rating will be the same. So from a design standpoint, an engineer can put together a very comprehensive and more successful design for a plastic piping system.
If you used SDR 11 throughout the whole system, whether it's 3, 6, 10 inch, he's guaranteed to maintain that pressure rating throughout.
This is just talking about the color, and we are green. Aquatherm has some green and some blue. Nyron has mostly gray, but it's all that doesn't. The color doesn't have any effect with regard to what it will or won't do. This is long-term service capabilities, and well, I don't have any comparisons there for you. But when they calculate pressure rating over time and so forth, they take into consideration the time fraction. Is it always 100%, 150 psi or 100 psi, or is it 100 psi and then the system shuts down and it's next to nothing? So when they calculate service life, they take into consideration the time factor. They also will take into consideration, all that doesn't show here, what the media is. Some chemicals will reduce the service life of the material. So they have to take that into consideration. But these are the kind of numbers that they look at for long-term service.
Yeah.
Wall thickness, pipe with higher pressure, and pipe outer diameter reduction. In a lot of cases, you can use a smaller diameter pipe because of the higher pressure capability of PP-RCT. You know, you may be able to drop down from a 3-inch to a 2.5-inch pipe. So this is just something that the design engineer has to look at and can take advantage of. Another illustration of the comparative values at various temperatures for PPA, block copolymer, random copolymer, and PP-RCT. And you can see in every case, all the way across to 95C, the PP-RCT is the better. More of the same. Now we offer as a standard in the smaller sizes an SDR 7.4 and then SDR 9, then we go to SDR 11, then SDR 13.5, and then SDR 17.6. But the pressure ratings are shown in the literature, so you don't have to memorize those at all. More of the same, talking about weights and the bore diameter, etc. Jack. More again of the same, comparing the diameters. All right, some installations. I don't know where those two were from. Could be from University of South Dakota, but the material is being used because of its higher pressure temperature capability. That's why it fits in. Again, it's competing against PEX, steel, copper, CPVC, and polypropylene. And polypropylene has less than 1% of the potential market. And we believe the potential market is $166 billion. So we've got a long way to go. Just projected growth scenarios for the material. Okay, Jack. These are some of the initiatives that the Plastic Pipe Institute, and writing standards and specifications, ASTM, and then Borealis and some of the things that they're doing. This is the King Abdullah Financial District in Saudi Arabia. All of those high-rise buildings are all piped with PP-RCT. But you know, you can see, you know, the mechanical room and so forth, reducing the weight of the material, of the pipe and so forth. Plus, because of better flow rates, it was possible to reduce the number of pumping stations as you're going up in the high-rise buildings. And that's
a pumping station every so many floors, and you can reduce the number of that.
South Dakota State University on their chiller plant.
Okay. We can
Probably heard of
appreciate
these
this
guys.
one, maybe.
Pardon?
They can appreciate this stuff.
Yeah. This is a 24-inch diameter chilled water line that they put in, that they were making 6 joints a day of 24-inch. You know, versus maybe
Steel,
one a
as
day
I
of
mentioned,
steel.
27 inches of weld from a good tradesman per shift.
Spotable was the contractor on that.
You did. Fellas, for me, was funny.
Good, bad, and different. Friend?
I guess, to be discussed later. But I thought you did, you might know the next one too.
Yeah. Then McClure did this one. This was in Lancaster. This one happens to be all nylon. But it's all Borealis.
It's all the exact same pipe, essentially.
Yeah. They got there ahead of us. We didn't know about this stuff when they sold that. So at any rate.
You folks do business with McClure too?
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, get us a Hershey application.
Now, if someone has aqua, therm or Nyron in there and they want to expand their system or add on.
That'd be Nyron.
Yeah, you'd have to be Nyron to get add on to it.
No.
Or you
You
could
fuse this right to it.
you could fuse it right
Yeah.
together, so
You
it
bet.
doesn't matter what you have, okay?
You bet, yep.
You can fuse whether it's PPR or PPRC, you can fuse this together.
Preferably it'd be PP-RCT,
Okay,
but
Okay.
they will fuse together just fine.
you can fuse this together, no problem at all, okay,
Either socket or butt,
okay.
so. If we go over there,
Because
we
that's what
didn't
we
talk
checked,
about
because
that.
Kinsley had that one we were asking about.
All right, gentlemen and ladies, forgive me, I can only see one of the ladies, this handsome young guy's blocking you, but I know we sent the samples down, but this is made, extruded in, 3 operations. It's all polypro CRT on the OD and the ID, but in the middle, if you see the samples down there, you can pass them around if you would. It has a layer of, that is the actual Borealis resin with fiberglass mixed in there. That's the real big secret to RCT. It keeps the pipe rigid, and you can, in opposed to polypro or virtually any thermoplastics at the upper temperature range, you have to support it much closer because once it gets hot, it sags. Right? This will not. You can use the same support spacing as you can in all copper applications or certainly carbon steel. It's up to the engineer, but that's a major savings, support spacing compared to normal.
But even as important as that, the other thing is that that's what keeps the material from expanding and contracting outrageously. It allows this material to be used with the same expansion and contraction as copper. And normally, polypropylene grows 1 to 1 1/4 inches per 10 degrees delta T per 100 feet.
What that
Which is
really
a lot.
means is
If you're going to
expands
use
and
it in a
contracts
hot
about 5 or
application,
6 times.
you get a lot more
than
pipe
metal.
when you start it up. It's like polyethylene.
So, Aquatherm that's installed now is gonna expand, they'll probably have issues with the expansion of everything on their system now.
Aquatherm has what they call a phaser core,
Okay,
which has the fiberglass in it.
okay.
Not all of it, just some of it, so you have to look at
To see what there's-
what they have installed. But they do have the fiberglass core. Darn it.
But in general, thermoplastics versus a piece of carbon steel, thermoplastics will expand 5 or 6 times. And it's common knowledge, it's a fact, and the engineers take that into consideration.
Try to show you how tough this is.
You want it? I get it, yeah, I got it. Yeah.
You know what happens? As you go up in age, the floor gets further and further away. Just gets further and further away.
Well, my floor is a little bit closer than yours still, but still pretty far away.
All right, Jack, come do your thing. This has a switch, a safety switch, so that you can inadvertently start it up. Only the safety switch isn't working. You got to hold it in so that you.
Safety switch's name is Jack.
Okay. Wonderful, Jack.
That's it.
Here's what I'm looking for. A complete cut all the way around on both sides. So that now I know that it's going to be perfectly, tough stuff, perfectly parallel. Doesn't hurt if that stays on there.
And for the record, you do not have to have those lines lined up.
It looks so much
Aesthetically,
prettier though.
Maybe more pleasing if you did, but, you know, it's good conversation.
I'm lining them up, Jack.
Well, over here, you missed, my son.
Well, that's not the one I'm lining up. Okay. There was no gap in there.
Very hot.
Yep, very, very hot.
Back up, back up. One more.
There we go. That's still wrong. I had trouble with this Wednesday, didn't I? There we go.
That's not quite 500 degrees,
Yeah.
but I do not want to touch it. As the lady said earlier, but I have a tough time handling a curling iron. It will make your hair curl.
That must have been Christine.
I
It
am
was the
waiting
lady who
now
was sitting in
for,
the corner right next to Christine.
I'm waiting for a bead to start to form.
So you're just pulling it together just slightly now.
Just,
Do you have a,
I got a
touch
gauge
it,
down
please.
here.
okay,
It
yep,
tells me how much pressure I've got on there.
okay.
And there's a chart,
I don't get it.
gives you all that information. I just wing it.
Do you have to cut it each time you're getting ready to make that seam? Do you have to put that blade in and cut and make sure
Yes,
that?
you want to take all the steps necessary to make that an absolute square and, you know,
Gotcha.
no
So that's
gaps.
the
And
first
when
step.
you bring it together, you can actually,
So-
even though you think it
so those
looks
samples won't
cut
work too
square,
well.
but it's not quite. So the shaving just guarantees you that it's made it all the way around.
Gotcha. And you don't have to like ream it or do any type of other prep work, except just get that,
Just that shaving, yeah.
okay.
So if you're doing a 24-inch diameter, you've got a machine like this that's,
Yep.
It's a lot of lugging around, huh?
you think?
There we go.
So now after that was hot, he put those together on his gauge to a certain pressure on there. And then that starts to bead in the center there and they're fusing together now.
Yeah.
How long,
Yeah,
how long
that's-
do you have? I imagine it depends on the size of the plate, but how long do you have to put that together once you?
On this size, 5 seconds.
That's-
So you got plenty of time to get together. You know, it's not like, now if it's 10 degrees out and the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour, you might want to work faster. Or
Stay
have
in
a
front
little
of it.
tent, something.
Yeah.
to-
Break down the wind at least, you know.
So how
What?
would I do it, like the one picture you had for Hershey? That looked like that was kind of like in ground or in a,
It's in a ditch.
Yeah.
how do you get a unit when it's that large in there to
Those
make that?
what was that, 24 inch?
Yeah, that was 24.
That was, the unit for that is humongous.
So that
Like a-
unit would actually sit in that trench or that ditch first, and then they would kind of,
Most of the time they put it together alongside the trench,
And then put it in.
and then drop it in.
Drop the piece.
And make a final joint
Okay.
down the trench.
And they
Okay.
said, we asked him, like, if you're doing it on the ceiling somewhere, or, they said you can take a machine,
lot
but
of
you use
work.
like
You
4
can
inch
take a
screws there, you
machine
put it on the man
scissor-
lift.
scissor
You mount that to the man
platforms,
lift, and you kinda have your
And then
hangers
just-
laying there, and you put the man lift to the right height, and fuse it, go down, fuse it, just keep going down through.
Boy, a good straight line too.
I bet that, huh?
I'm gonna give you a gold
Yeah.
star on that forehead of yours. Now, you'll look inside too, you'll see a bead just like as you see in the outside, and a very common question that's asked is, well, is that going to interrupt with my flow rates, creating turbulence? And all the flow rates that we publish are in, that bead is taken into consideration. So if we say it's gonna be X, it is X.
Now, how long does it take to make a joint from the time you have it cut square and everything to fuse it?
Well, you know, if.
Depending on the size.
Okay.
If you're smart and make square cuts to begin with, that reduces the amount of shaving you have to do.
Mhm.
You know, if you're using a Sawzall and you're hacking it off at an angle, you're gonna shave for a long time.
Okay.
So you can actually make a joint 3-4 minutes.
Then you should always dry fit it to make sure that's square then.
Yeah, yeah.
You can
Once
draw
you
it
shave-
together and you're looking for a gap,
Yeah.
against that seam.
So time after you fuse it together, till you're done holding it there, how long do you have to wait till you can?
It's ready,
take that?
it's ready as soon as you take it out.
It could
If
be,
you can't,
theoretically, it could be tested for pressure right then and there or whatever. But polyolefin material or polypropylene, polyolefin is the family it belongs in. Once you cut that in a cross section, and I wish we had some right here, but you'll see that the butt fusion process made those two pieces of pipe one. It is, you cannot see where one starts and the other one finishes, unlike a socket PVC or, even though that's a homogeneous joint too, but that is absolutely solid one piece.
you can also, like there is a little difference in the
Sounds like the
size
ocean.
of the bead
Yeah.
on those 3 joints, particularly the last one I did. And you can control that to an extent. I like to make the bead smaller. You'll see some people that just heat the daylights out of it and then squash it together and get a larger bead. But as long as you get a bead that rolls away from the heater plate on both sides, when you bring it together, you're in good shape. That's the nice thing about this kind of jointing technique is you can visually inspect the joint to a high degree of certainty to determine whether it's a good joint or not. You can't do that on socket joints. You know, I remember one of the first jobs that I was ever on, it was a polypro, but it was a block fill polymer, but there were something approaching 8,000 joints in a wafer fab facility down in Orlando, and they had 3 leakers when they pressure tested the system.
That's a good batting average.
Yeah. It was, the contractor couldn't believe it.
In any of projects that you folks may get involved in, rest assured we won't just let you fly solo. Either us or somebody from Simtech or the factory or whoever will be there to train the people properly so they have a high degree of confidence in what the heck they're doing. It's not rocket science. Any one of you folks can, master this in a reasonable amount of time. But the contractors, as I said earlier, I always feel like I'm repeating myself, but they are all accustomed to doing some form of thermoplastics, whether it be acid drain systems for electrofusion or polyethylene for butt fusion, on PVC. I mean, plastics are obviously a big part of our world today, but this is just a newer generation of polypro, and it's opening up a lot more avenues for applications. But polypro has been around for a long, long time.
What happens if you do have a leak? If you've made that joint and it leaks?
Cut it out and refuse it.
So then they have to take the piece of equipment back over, they have to cut out that section and then,
Repair.
Yeah.
the
but
pipe,
how do,
everything.
Or-
like,
or-
what do they, cause they can't move the pipe together now,
Put a
so,
piece in.
so you have
Cut it
to,
and figure it out, put a piece in, yeah.
gotcha. And how do you
Or
attach a
you
fitting?
use an electrofusion coupling to make the repair.
Okay. How do fittings attach to the pipe?
Yeah, explain that to
Same
me.
way,
Same way.
same way.
Except you would have an elbow on one side and a piece of pipe on the other, and it's still a
Yeah.
butt fuse connection.
Do you have to use the shaver on the fitting as well?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're gonna shave part of the fitting off as well,
Yeah.
so a 90
What you
across
wanna
the T.
get down to is clean virgin material.
Okay,
You know, so shaving it, even if it's only one turn, so that anything that might be on the surface is removed. Then you
Okay.
can make a weld with it, but you want it clean.
so then are the fittings molded to be a little bit longer? Like, do they allow for that in the molding process? Is there a little extra
Well,
material?
ironically, these fittings that we got here today are socket fusion.
Yeah, well,
But I know what she's saying, you know, is the
no,
fitting,
the tangents on the fittings,
Mhm.
90s, 45s, Ts, etc., are plenty long enough to clamp in the machine. Now, if you're gonna do this tool with a fitting, you would take these inserts out on one side so that you only had one set of inserts that would be narrow. Okay, now they can hold that fitting just as square as they need to,
Okay.
no problem.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of setting the tool up based on what you're gonna do.
Okay.
And explain to them the socket fittings, how those go together.
Okay.
The tool.
Socket fittings, this is a socket fitting. And you have a heater plate similar to that, except that you have heating mandrels, that is
in the center of that heating plate.
a piece on either side. One will be a male heating mandrel which will fit inside the fitting. And on the other side will be a female heating mandrel that the pipe goes into. So you put them both on the heater plate at the same time, melt them. We'll give you a chart that tells you how long you do it. Take them apart off there and then just stab them together. And a few seconds, you hold it about 10 seconds and let it go. It's ready to go.
Now, when the fittings in the pipe are cold before you use them, they will not fit together. You can't push the fittings into the socket. They're designed so they have an interference fit, so you won't be able to get them in until it is heated up then.
And what the mandrels do, heat up the OD of the pipe and the ID of the fitting. And as Jim just said, once you that allows you to push it in right down to the stop. And you hold it for 10 seconds or so and it won't back off anymore. And that's only up to 4 inch. Anything 4 inch or anything above 4 inches butt fuse.
You really don't want, if you have your druthers, just socket fuse through 2 inch. Because this is a lot of material that you have to displace while it's hot and so forth. And it takes a lot of force pushing it in there. 4 inch, you gotta be a real man. You know, because it's
And I'll
very,
defer to you
very,
gentlemen.
very viscous material.
My arm wrestling day career is behind me.
4 inches is bare to do, and some people still have 6 inch socket fittings. And I mean, you absolutely can't do it unless it's a 2-man crew.
I would be willing to wager that most of your contractors are accustomed to socket fusion polypro. You know, and it's a smaller heater plate than that. It has the mandrels on it. And, you know, anybody that has done any work with you know, I have a product called N-Pure, which is a natural polypro, very common, but George Fisher, Asahi, they all have the smaller diameter hand tools, and I can't believe that any one of your contractors haven't used either from you folks or from one of your competition. It's a very common thing.
So if we have a job going, what about the equipment? How does the contractor?
Well, you have some options. We are tied up with a company called Simtech over in Bensalem, New Hampshire, who has all of
New
these.
Hampshire.
I'm stuck on New Hampshire.
We know what you meant.
I come from,
Bring it
I mean, I lived in Nashua, New Hampshire for years, and I'm going home on Wednesday for Thanksgiving, but in Bensalem, and they have everything from the small tool to a 24-inch right there, and for sale or for rent.
Yeah, we've already quoted actually a tool at Kingley,
Is that right?
because they had a small, like a 1-inch job or whatever. So we quoted them some 1-inch fittings, and we
Yeah,
actually
buy
quoted
the
them
tool.
a tool, and then the mandrel to do 1 inch, because you get, each one of those is a different size one.
Okay.
It wasn't real expensive.
Really?
No, to
No.
buy it from Simtech.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think 50,000.
Was it?
No.
So will that machine there do, obviously varying sizes?
Half to 6.
That one will do half to 6. Gotcha.
Then all you need, then they got 6 to 12, they got some
Some
8-inch, 12-inch
Yeah.
machines.
Yeah,
They go up to
Well,
24-inch machines.
really.
Yeah, butt fusion.
What's the advantage of the socket versus the seam? When would you, what's the application of one over the
There's
other?
no advantage one over the other in terms of performance.
Okay.
It's just a preference of how you want to put it together.
Mm.
You know, if you have a few joints to do, you don't want to mess with something like this, you can get a socket tool, which is a paddle that's half the size of that.
It has the
Handheld,
mandrels on
with
either
the
side,
mandrels on
and you
either
can do it
side.
manually.
And you can make the joints very quickly and easily.
Oh, you can just,
Well, you can
with
do
your
it,
own
you know,
weight.
what he's saying earlier, I don't know if it was this group or just recently, you know, anything beyond 2 inch, I can handle 2 inch, but 3 and 4 inch, you might need this guy's muscles, you know. It's, and you gotta be aligned.
I was gonna say, you can line it up good enough?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I made it
But
sometimes.
it takes a, you know, you're
Get
working
used
with
to
two hands, and it's an unnatural, at least to me, it's always been an unnatural muscle to use to hold them on like this, you know, how often do you do that, you know?
Okay.
You occasionally see a 90 that's on, you know, kind of, it's best to cut that off and do it over again.
So I guess, Bob, so we're gonna stock socket probably then up to 2 inch and then,
Well,
But-
they make socket
Is that how-
systems up to 4 inch.
I have to look at our
You
list.
know, and this-
I just wondered.
Switched over.
I mean, these fittings right here will go to 4 inch for socket fusion.
I was just asking what we brought into, what we're bringing into stock. I didn't know what we were gonna stock.
I forget if we switched it 3.
I mean, it doesn't really
3 or
matter,
4.
I just wondered.
Well, I'll have to eat it.
So, I noticed there's no residue on that plate, so nothing sticks to that plate that you have to clean it off?
It's Teflon coated. If you make a lot of joints with it, sometimes you get some material that sticks to it. You need a clean cloth and maybe some alcohol, just to wipe it off, keep it clean.
Oh, alcohol on a hot plate, I don't see an issue. I'm on fire, I think.
The olive oil ham works the best.
No, it's,
See you fried egg when you're
they
done.
don't,
Make your breakfast. It's awesome.
they don't tend to, well, I say they don't. You go on some job sites and you see what a contractor does, you know, and their guys can destroy manhole covers, so.
Yeah.
So the most dangerous,
Particularly when it doesn't belong to them, you know.
Yeah.
so the most dangerous part of this whole thing is some idiot grabbing that plate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
That's the only, that's probably the most dangerous
But,
part of the
you know,
whole.
the-
We will
Smack his
we'll
butt.
supply that plate with an asbestos cover that slides over it,
Okay.
okay, so.
That was Deanne's biggest fear too.
Yeah.
At the chili cook-off,
But it's a
Yeah.
mistake,
Somebody's
it's a
gonna touch
mistake
it.
most guys only do
Right.
once.
I mean,
You
because it's
tend to
not like
learn after
red or
you
like
start
hot,
up,
it doesn't.
I only did it
it
once.
hurts, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not as actually hot as you think it is.
And, but
Don't
you
touch
know,
it, Tim.
Give it the tongue
There you go.
test.
curiosity is the biggest scary factor. Is that really hot? Really? You gotta touch it. You gotta touch it. It's just like you're drawn.
It's like
to it.
wet paint.
Yeah. Is that really wet? Is this cement dry wet? You know.
Tim wants to get touch, I can see him.
I know, he is itching.
It doesn't look that
Kinda want
hot.
Jeremy to do it.
Get your thermal gun and see.
I don't have any feeling in my fingers, I'd never feel it until it's burnt.
Let me ask everyone a question that is only indirectly related to this. Who knows what C-PACE is?
See.
C, capital C, PACE, P-A-C-E. C-PACE is commercial, the C stands for commercial. The PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. And today, with all of the emphasis on renewable and sustainable energy, let's say you had a customer who owned an apartment complex, and he wanted to sell it or he wanted to upgrade it, you know, to upgrade the heating and air conditioning and that sort of thing. He can get a loan through C-PACE that will pay 100% of the cost, material and labor and so forth, to make that upgrade. And then the cost of that loan is added to his property tax bill, payable over 20 years. And it's not a personal loan. He can sell the property the day after it's done. The day after the work is done, he can sell the property, enjoy the benefits of that added value from what he's done and so forth, put that in his pocket too, and be off to Florida or wherever he wants to go. It is something that is one of the best kept secrets in the industry in the country. I mean, you don't have to have great credit. The
property,
loan,
the real estate is
the
backed
real
up.
estate is the collateral for the loan. And this is something that you think about the developers you know, the builders that you know, and so forth, or people that have properties that would want to upgrade them. They can do it without a penny out of pocket, not 1 cent. And the only requirement is that they have to spend the money to upgrade the HVAC, the insulation or the envelope of the building and so forth. It can cover thermal pane windows, anything that makes it more energy efficient. They can replace the HVAC with geothermal. It'll pay every penny. You think about that as a sales tool, and you think about the customers that you have out there that could benefit from that if they knew about it, and you've got something to sell. Does that make sense? I mean, this is for real. This is covered by the Department of Energy, and I mean, it amazes me the number of places I've been and people I've talked to that don't know about this opportunity. And this is not, this is not just, something that sounds good or whatever. It's real and it's being done. Chester County has passed C-PACE. Delaware County has passed C-PACE. Philadelphia County, I think, has or is about to. Dauphin County, I think, is about to. I mean, it has to be passed or approved on a county-by-county basis because that's where the property taxes are paid. Okay, so the legislature passed the regulations that allowed establishing C-PACE in the state, and this is not just here. There's 27 other states that are all working on developing their C-PACE programs. What an incredible economic incentive You know, I mean, if you know some people out there that have some property that they'd like to upgrade, and you can't lose.
Even the buyer and the seller gain, because you've enhanced the equity in the property with all the benefits that you added, and the buyer is getting that much more for his buck, but it's still on the taxes.
Yeah.
And he is responsible for it, not the guy that sold it.
Yeah, the financing stays with
And the bankers love
property
it.
taxes. But there's a whole cadre of banks nationwide that specialize in this kind of financing. It's what they do. And if you run across some situations, I can get you some information about, you know, where these banks are, who they are. I mean, they're local, you know, and they're nationwide.
And how does this tie into these gentlemen?
Well, how it ties in is that
The weight of this and.
I didn't even ask what
That-
lengths do they come in.
Handling is far easier. And, you know, that Saudi Arabian, was it Saudi? No.
Yeah.
Dubai or Saudi?
No,
One of those
Saudi.
countries. And these sky-rise buildings, because of the weight of the pipe, they can, you know, getting up to, I don't know, 75 stories
Yeah,
or
there
some
were
crazy
80-some stories.
number. You gotta have pump stations along the way to
Yeah.
push that up, and it's significantly less with plastics in general, not just ours. but-
What lengths do they come in?
19 feet.
19.
The reason for the 19 feet is that currently it's being extruded in Germany, has to come in by container, so it has to fit in a 20-foot container. When Baraboo starts running it, they'll run 20s and 40s and that sort of thing.
Okay.
But for right now, it's 19 footers.
How do you fuse the footings on?
How do you,
He was,
well, this, you know, it's
Same way.
either gonna be a socket fuse where the fittings are also made butt fuse, and you've butt fused the fitting on the same as you were doing two pieces of pipe. We can take the inserts out of one side of this, half the inserts, so that now we have a narrow clamp that'll hold the fitting, which has a short tangent on it. You can hold the fitting now, and you can do the same thing I just did with the pipe. So,
Something that Wayne also brought up, you know, the infusion, electrofusion type fitting, you know, we can provide it, but sometimes if you get an application, particularly a larger one, and space doesn't allow you, it's a lot more convenient to, you know, maybe your last couple of fittings, because of the way it's located or whatever, to put an electrofusion fitting there. And that machine would just be attaching two wires to wherever those leads are, in opposed to trying to jury rig, you know, how do you get this up here and But it's, didn't we say that 9-1 is doing that on a regular basis? They're really promoting,
Chris ZU is, you know, Chris believes that,
and he's the leader of NIRA.
yeah, he believes that there's a tremendous backlash against butt fusion tools and so forth. And so if you sell electrofusion, where you just gotta hook up a couple of wires, that's the way to go. That's ignoring the fact that electrofusion fitting is very, very expensive. You know, very
What
expensive.
about the pressures?
And there's a lot more labor to do that, because you have to peel the end of the pipe all the way around in order to make sure that the OD of the pipe will match the ID of the fitting properly. So there's a lot of labor involved, and you know why he I don't know, I'm glad he does. You know, as long as he pushes that, that's great.
Makes us look better.
Yeah.
But again, properly trained, you know, the butt fusion is just, it's just not rocket.
Like new construction and stuff like that, but what's your already existing facility and they're trying to retrofit something, and you're up on a ladder 30 feet up in the air trying to,
Excellent question.
You mean they're trying to retrofit something that's already in there?
Yeah, and say there's machinery
You
and stuff
may.
in the way, they might be up on the scissors lift or something, and they're trying to run, you know, update product in there with this material, like how would they fuse that pipe together?
Well, a lot of it's put in when it's going up overhead in the hierarchy or whatever. The machine goes up on a scissors lift. Load a platform on there and you just go down the line, make your joints, etc. But you have to plan, you know, where you're gonna make joints, because always one end of the pipe has to move in order for you to be able to make that bud fusion joint. So that's why you have to plan. Now, if you get to a tight corner where something won't move, that's when you use an electric fusion fitting.
Where space is a real
Yeah.
consideration. But are you referring to tie into an existing system?
Or it's just, you know, I've been in situations where stuff's already there and you're trying to shoehorn something in, past something else, and you're out hanging off the edge of a scissors lift, trying to run pipe. Is it more of a portable unit in the works for that, or?
And that's just about as portable as you get.
30 pounds.
There is a,
It has a big job to do, Jeff.
I've been in many situations, I've been hanging off the edge of the scissors lift the platform extend all the way out, and you're still reaching out,
Yep.
so.
Well,
that'd be my
this
concern.
probably wouldn't be a good application for
Yeah,
this
yeah,
product
the
then.
fusion then coupling or something like that.
it,
And that's gonna be interchangeable then?
I'm sorry?
So they could put weld sections, but then they could also interchange with the fusion weld?
Oh yeah, you can switch back and forth from socket and bud fusion or electric fusion. Or let's say you join it up to steel pipe, you have to flange it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all of your connections to dissimilar materials
Should always be.
would always be flanged.
What's the weight of the electrofusion machine?
It's something that's about the size of a bread box and has some wires that come out of it.
And you don't have to hold that, you can just put it on the bottom of the scissor
Yeah.
floor, and all you do is have a couple of wire leads in that case.
Yeah.
But you would probably have to flange up to an existing system, and then however many plastic joints, depends on the application.
Okay.